Good afternoon and good morning to some of you. My name is Maurice Altaf. I'm your CTC Productivity Tools Specialist, and we have Shawn Zirbes joining from CTC Software. He's a technical evangelist for CTC. So just a recap of what SolidCAD has to offer. We offer training for our clients in all disciplines, BIM consulting, data management and collaboration, some customization and software development if needed. And we also host events as well, such as Revit Pub Night. We have 15 offices and 12 training facilities across Canada. So if needed, we're there for you. We also offer technical support to all of our clients, which is free of cost for any questions and inquiries that you may have or any errors. We also have partnerships and sponsorships with some of the events and some of associates out there, and an array of the products that we offer. But today we'll be talking about CTC productivity tools, and within the CTC tools we'll actually be looking over the BIM Manager Suite for today. Shawn will be taking us over on how to obtain the suite, discussion of the suite deployment, and then identify the free tools versus the licensed tools and some of the popular tools within BIM Manager Suite. Shawn, please take over.
Well, thank you, Muhiz. So my name, as mentioned, is Shawn Zirbes with CTC Software, and today we're going to be discussing in depth the BIM Manager Suite. Now, this suite is purpose-built for those of you in industry who are BIM managers. This is going to help improve a lot of the efficiency, a lot of the tedious tasks that we have to do on a daily basis. I'm going to take you through a few of the tools here today and show you how some of these interfaces and how some of these workflows can really eliminate hours of just tedious management. In some cases, I'll lightly demonstrate the tools. In other cases, I'll talk about them. We don't have enough time to go super in depth into all of the tools, so we're just going to kind of highlight a few of them that are going to be super important for you. As Muhiz mentioned, I'm going to be specifically identifying free versus licensed, talking about some of the popular ones, how you can get your hands on it, and also a little bit about how you can install this and deploy it across your firm to make that easy if you want to give this off to multiple people. Since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, I'm going to jump live into Revit, and we're going to take a look at how these tools work in the Revit environment directly. I do want to point out, if you've got any questions while we're talking about these tools, feel free to throw them into the questions window, and I'll try to answer them in line if meaningful, or in some cases, we might wait till the end to answer some of the questions. But feel free to throw them in the window while we're talking. I'm pulling off my ribbon here, the BIM Manager Suite. You can see here that I'm on a tab called CTC Software. This tab gets automatically created when you install any of our suites into your Revit environment. You can also perhaps see that I'm working up here in Revit version 2018.3. Our tools automatically work on 2017 through Revit 2020, the latest 4 supported versions of Revit. The BIM Manager Suite itself, you might notice here, has 2 major different icon colors. There's light blue icons and there's the dark blue icons. Family processor up here, by the way, is actually a dark blue icon. It's just disabled because I'm not actually in a family right now. I can't use it unless I'm in a family editor environment. But the reason why I'm talking about the icon colors, the light blue versus the dark blue, is because the light colored icons are free. And the dark colored icons are those that require some kind of licensing. At the end of our discussion today, I'm going to show you how you can get your hands on this suite if you don't have it already. So you can actually install it in your firm. You can try it out for 14 days for free. And in that 14 days, these dark colored icons will work. And after the 14 days, they'll stop working unless you get a license. But those light colored icons here, things like the Project Cleaner, a really powerful tool, that'll just continue to work. So it's nice and meaningful there. You can keep using the tools even after the trial some of the tools, I should say, even after the trial's expired. Okay, let's talk about two major workflows that the Manager Suite can help you with. One is establishing a true solid foundation of data in your firm, getting your shared parameters in line, getting your family content in line, making sure your schedules are all aligned with all of that, standard data foundation. So all the family content and your standards, your shared parameter standards, getting that all set up and established. In some of our firms, we feel like we've got a pretty solid handle on this. In other cases, we might realize that there's some things that have crept in that we don't like, and it's going to take us some time to fix. In some cases, it might take us a lot of time to fix, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I have three specific tools that are purpose-built, actually four tools that are kind of purpose-built to help you with this. There's a tool here called Shared Parameter Manager. There's a tool called Family Processor, the one that's currently grayed out. There's a Schedule Parameter Fixing tool here, Schedule Parameter Resolver, and there's also family tools to help do a little bit of cleanup on your library, a free tool over here. So with those four tools, I can actually go through and in a morning establish my standards or change my mind on some standards and implement those changes across my entire firm. That's really meaningful. I don't typically do that every single day though. Usually I establish my foundation, my data foundation, and fix my families, and I do that once in a while to keep things nice, neat, and clean. But the second workflow I want to talk about with you today relates to project maintenance. Almost all of the time, I'm called in for consulting with some of our clients to help them figure out why their projects maybe aren't performing optimally. And so I have four tools that are designed to help with that as well. One of them is the Project Cleaner, a free tool. Helps me kind of rapidly clean stuff out of a project, views, view templates, some basic things like that. And for a free tool, it does quite a lot and is really powerful. There's also times when I want to clean up a project before I send it out of house or when I'm receiving a model from outside, and I use this tool to help me with that as well. Another tool that I often use just to kind of check model integrity is my DIM checker. This one allows me to check to see who's been overriding, well, not who, which dimensions have been overridden in a model. If I have certain other tools, I might be able to decide who that was as well, if I really care. But this helps me understand which dimensions might be overridden and if I care about them. There's a great tool here, Import and Link Manager. I know Revit has a built-in link manager inside of it, but it doesn't really have a good quality way of finding imports, imported images, imported DWGs, things like that. This tool can help me find them and fix them. So really meaningful there. If somebody has gone through in my project perhaps and exploded some drawings or maybe brought in some garbage standards that don't really align with my main company standards, I have a tool here called Type Swapper that helps me fix that. So the major things that I, as a BIM manager, spend a lot of time tracking down, fixing views in my project, kind of cleaning things up in general, finding overridden dimensions, fixing imported content, and actually swapping certain styles out across my model for those that I really want people using instead of old standards or imported CAD exploded stuff. This can really help me with that workflow. So again, two primary workflows. Family and kind of standards checking, standards correction for your data foundation there, Shared Parameter Manager, Family Processor, Schedule Parameter Resolver, and Family Tools. And then the other four for general project cleanup, Project Cleaner, DIM Checker, Import Link Manager, Type Swapper. Those 8 tools, when used on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis as a BIM manager, save me tons and tons of time. I want to show you a few examples here. I'm going to go through some of these tools really quickly. I'm not going to go through full workflows. If you want to see more about full workflows, opening up any of our tools at the top here, if you download and install the trial or if you've already got them, there's a videos link here that'll take you really in depth into each of these tools to let you understand much more about how they work and how you can leverage them. What I'm going to do is just a quick overview of some of them today so you can see a little bit about how they work. And if you want to see more, again, install the trial or take a look at those videos. The Shared Parameter Manager is kind of my starting point across the board. This is really the foundation of data for projects and for families. And so I like showing this tool off first for most companies. You can really see how this can help you out. I'm going to show a couple of features that are meaningful here. With the Shared Parameter Manager, I have the ability to go browse for an existing shared parameter file. And when I do this, it'll start showing me some information inside of here to kind of let me understand what's going on. I can use some filters over here to figure out things like potential naming issues that might exist, and I can isolate those. So I can find things like mathematical characters in my parameter names, or some other issues here, potentially like just kind of poor formatting in general, no spaces between my names. I can find things like that out. So it's one way of leveraging this tool just for doing some general correction. And once I find things like that, if I wanted to fix something, in fact, let's go fix that I think it was frame depth issue. There was, if I go down to my dimensions here, yeah, frame depth. There's actually frame depth and frame thickness there. I want to fix all 6 of these parameters. I have the ability to actually rename parameters. In the out-of-the-box tool, if I was to edit one of these, I couldn't change anything about them. But this here, I actually have the ability to rename them and to change their disciplines and their types of parameters and other things that are important about these parameters. Out of the box, there's no real clean way of doing this, no safe way. Now I can actually make those changes. Well, I should say out of the box, I could delete and recreate from scratch, but that's not all that fun. And if I have a number of these that I want to fix, I can do something like a find and replace. I can say find frame and replace it with frame space. I can preview those changes and see the original name or the current name that's sitting over here right now, and I can see what the repaired name might look like. And so once I find that, I can apply those changes. It is going to effectively do the same thing it would happen if I was doing this out of the box. It would delete and recreate them, changing the GUID, the global unique identifier that's used by families and tags and schedules. But it's notifying me that it's doing this. It's making me have the ability to do this very efficiently instead of doing this one by one to make those corrections. Because if I have to do this one by one and try and fix all these, I'm just not going to do it. I don't have time for that as a BIM manager. I've got better things to do with my time. But this helps me make that change and then also further implement that later. So if I decide yes to do this, then it renames those 6 parameters and it fixes them. And if I apply those changes, now, oh, hang on, just close this out. It's already applied them. Those actually get removed from my list now. It should have fixed those few parameters here. Let's go back to dimensions. Where was that? There it is. Yeah, those are gone now because I've fixed those 6 parameters. Another thing that you can leverage this for, if I have more than one shared parameter file, that's not really very ideal. In normal BIM practice, you want to try to have a single shared parameter file for the entire firm. And this helps you do that as well. If I go browse for another shared parameter file that may have creeped into my standards, maybe somebody made it, maybe they took a copy of my original, or I downloaded some manufacturing content and I want to see what their parameters are versus mine, I can start to compare this as well, showing things like conflicting parameters. Let me browse for a different shared parameter file here, just in case I have one that actually has some proper conflicts. There we go. I got the right shared parameter file. This one's got some issues. I can actually see that there's some parameters here like copyright circle C and product documentation link, and they look the same between the 2 files, but the difference is when somebody made these, they have a different GUID, a different globally unique identifier. So if some of my families are based on this frame finish, and if I scroll down in materials over here, some of my families are based on this frame finish, in my door schedule, my frame finishes won't align and my door schedule will show blank spots, and that's frustrating. So what I want to do is make a choice between these 2 files, which ones I want to keep. It's entirely possible that I may want to just keep the ones that I've already got. Or if more of my library happen to have been built off of these, maybe what I want to do is go through a couple of these parameters here and just delete the ones that I know I didn't use from my original shared parameter file. I delete those, and then I want to show unique parameters between these 2 files. And what I'll see then is that these identity data parameters now are unique. And I can simply copy these, drag and drop them across to the other side. Maybe the frame materials over here, or the materials and finishes I want to keep as well from this side, so I can drag and drop those. So I can very quickly merge 2 files together, and then when I'm all done, I can destroy this old file that's got garbage in it that I don't want to continue having people use, because I've now built up a single source of truth, my one main company shared parameter file. This tool can help you get to that level. Renaming parameters, doing batch find and replace to fix other naming issues, merging multiple files together. This is a fantastic way of working with your shared parameters to get exactly what you need. That's kind of the real main core of getting all of your standards set up across the entire firm, is making sure you've got that solid data foundation. Once you make all of these choices, I would go into a family and choose to make corrections to it or them as well. And the family
Shawn?
processor, yeah, please go ahead, Muhiz.
I apologize to cut you off. We've got a question
Sure.
from Chris Williams. He's asking if this can run on EPP.
So the shared parameter manager is built around getting your shared parameter file itself solid and stable. It doesn't really matter if it's the EPP or your own standards or whatever. This is used to get your shared parameter files clean. As far as running against content from the electrical productivity pack that CTC also offers, I would use the family processor portion for that. That's where I actually batch process the content to maybe change some parameters, maybe fix some formulas in the families. So yes, the BIM Manager Suite as a whole is a great tool to use to run against the electrical productivity pack, the EPP, or even the mechanical pack, mechanical productivity pack, to really get the standards to align with whatever it is you feel is appropriate. So these two tools are truly fantastic and good companions for those packs out there. So talking about the family processor a little bit more in depth, let's show an example of where.
Question, Shawn.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. It's from Michelle Lawn. She's asking if we need to audit our shared parameter file. Is there a tool that helps look at a batch of families to create a list of the shared parameters used in those families?
You know what? That's a great question. That also ties directly into the family processor. So the shared parameter manager is a good tool for managing just the shared parameter file. But if you need to harvest a bunch of parameters out of families that currently exist to kind of see what's in them, the family processor, one of its functions, actually while it's opening and scanning the families and doing some major repairs, it can also pull out parameters you might not be aware of and store them in a shared parameter file for use with the shared parameter manager to compare and make some decisions again. So yes, again, these two tools working very closely together can really help you solidify your standards. In fact, I actually have a webinar that talks directly about that exact workflow between these two tools in great depth to kind of talk you through all of the settings that really affect that. But this family processor, since those two questions came up about fixing parameters maybe in the EPP and also harvesting, I'm going to open up the family processor to show you some of what this can do so you can kind of see where that might be. I'm going to show you an example here. If I go down into my schedules, I'm going to use an architectural example, but this exact same concept works for any discipline. It doesn't really matter which discipline you're working with. In my door and frame schedule here, you might notice that I have a number of parameters inside of here, a number of rows that don't have data fields. In this case, I was talking earlier about the door material and frame material properties. Well, in this case, it's the door panel type, material, and finish right here that I'm going to focus on. And down here, you can see a lot of these rows are not editable. They're just blank. It's not because they don't have a value, because I can usually click in and change something, and you see the little ellipsis button over here. These don't even have the parameters, so they can't show me anything. This happens to be door number 142, which is on my level 1 floor plan. So let's go find where this is in my project. I'm going to open up that family and show you how the family processor can help me fix that one family. But also, if I had a number of families I was going to work with, I could process through a big batch of families. I'm not going to get super in-depth with this and show every pick and click and setting because I don't think we've got time for that today. But I'm going to take this family and edit it. So I'm in the family editor, and now you'll notice the family processor activates. I can use this tool. Now, if I wanted to go take a look at just those two properties, I'm going to go to the edit family types. We're going to look at panel material and panel finish. I'm going to show you just a couple of things we normally would do by hand. So if I take a look at panel finish first, if I edit this parameter, where did my window go? It's on my other screen. I apologize about that. Let's bring this across. In here, we'll notice that the panel finish is a shared parameter. And if I look down below, it is a material type of parameter. So it's basically configured correctly. However, it's currently set up as an instance parameter. And it's set up as a type parameter, not an instance. I want it to be an instance parameter. That's one of the ways that I like having my parameters configured. And also, if I look up here at the shared parameter option, I can export this. That is an indication to me that this panel finish used in this family is not my panel finish from my shared parameter file. And well, that's a problem because now I know that it's not pulling the right data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the family processor to set up a rule on how to fix this. And since I know that I've got a number of families with the same problem, I'm also going to have the ability to tell it to run that same exact change across multiple families. Because I could fix this once by hand, but when I've got 10, 20, 30 families that with this problem, or more, sometimes thousands of families with a certain problem, and I want to go through and fix all of them, I don't want to do it one by clicking, edit, going in here and selecting and browsing for some property changes. There's another issue that exists here, the panel material. If I look at this one and I edit this parameter, once again, it is a shared parameter, but it's not mine. So I could export it, or I could try and select a correct parameter from my shared parameter file. But the other issue here you might notice is that when people define parameters, sometimes they don't define them as you might expect. This panel material, it should be a material and finish the way that I define my parameters. I know this because I'm the BIM manager, I set the standard myself. But whoever defined this one set it up as text. This means that I cannot select from my shared parameter and swap it out for mine. I have to delete this parameter, destroying its data, and then come back and re-add a brand new parameter that's called panel material from my shared parameter file. That process is manual again, and it takes time, and I had to discover the problem in the first place. And there's plenty of other parameters in here that could be problematic as well. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing this manually through the family types dialog, is I'm going to use family processor. I'm going to start in family processor by just doing brand new settings. I'm going to clear all of my settings out so I've effectively got nothing. And I can make some major choices like auditing families when I'm processing through them, changing units of measure based on a template family that I have. I can do a lot of stuff. Swapping lookup tables. This is great for the MEP productivity pack stuff or anything in the MEP spaces. I can do things like modifying materials if I care to, things like deleting a bunch of materials that are garbage. We're focusing today on just changing parameters. And I'm going to set up a rule here for this panel material to say delete it if you find it, because it's set up wrong. Again, this will tell me panel material is text. That's not correct. So I want to delete it. I want to make sure I add a new shared parameter, and I need to make sure this is coming from my corporate standard shared parameter file here. So let's go ahead and browse for that real quick. I want to find my panel material, and I want to add that into my project. In this case, it's going to actually try and maintain the data that exists there. Even though it's a different data type, this tool is going to help me try to maintain that. So I need to have a material called WD. I'm going to jump back to materials just to find out if I do have that. Let's see. I do not have a WD material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a material called WD just so I can have it, so I can keep the data that people have typed in. I don't care right now what the properties of that are. I just want the material. And that way when I'm adding this panel material parameter, it has the ability to set it as a WD parameter type. This tool is going to help me with this to make this process super quick. I can also replace other parameters. If you remember that panel finish inside of here that exists, it is a material, but it's not mine. So when I add this below, because of how this is named with, in my case, English words in using just basic naming convention like panel finish, it looked through my shared parameter file and it found panel finish and it automatically grabbed it. In fact, there's a lot of other parameters that I might be interested in here. And if I add all those to my list, they're all going to swap out and become the correct parameters. This saves me a lot of time from needing to manually browse these. Ultimately, at the very end over here, when I'm doing selecting families and beginning this process, I can process either my current family or I can process through multiple families. And this here answers the question that was asked earlier. When I'm processing through multiple families, I can create a new shared parameter file from all the unique shared parameters found in these families that I'm processing. And I can tell it where to save it. And then I can come back later on with the tool Type Swapper and fix a bunch of, add some of those parameters perhaps to my shared parameter file, and then maybe run through Family Processor again. The key here is that with Family Processor, I can process hundreds or thousands of families in minutes instead of having to take 30 minutes per family. On average, I find it's about 30 minutes, a half hour per family to manually go in there and investigate and fix it. And if I've got more than one, It's just faster for me to set up Family Processor with a set of rules. Here's a really important key thing here. You can save your settings. So if you're constantly getting things from outside manufacturers or outside sources, and you can predict mostly what those settings are going to be, if you want to make them align with your standards, you can save your settings. And then later on, if I have multiple manufacturers of settings that I've established, I can open up that manufacturer's settings and swap out their standards for my standards. And now it becomes lightning fast for me to convert some content. So from a BIM management point of view, this Family Processor, after you have your shared parameter file in line, the way that you want it, Family Processor can be one of your best tools to save you literally months, sometimes years of work in going through and fixing libraries of content. Think of it this way. You can do the math yourself. If it takes me a half hour per family to fix things by hand, and that's a pretty standard number, you might have more or less, you can figure out your time, and you've got a 4,000 family library, you can do the math there. 4,000 times 30 minutes, divide that by 60 to get how many hours it would take you. It's over a year of time. Well, with the Family Processor, I can take and set up the rules for that exact content, and I can process it in a morning and be done. So one morning versus, 2,000 minutes of time, that's a pretty huge discrepancy there, right? That's a huge savings of your time. You can focus on other things pretty easily. So let's talk about the next tool in line, Schedule Parameter Resolver. This is the last major tool in this process that I use. Well, that's not true. I do use family tools after I run Family Processor sometimes. I like going through and cleaning up all the backups that sometimes get generated in directories. And the one main reason why I use family tools is to very quickly go in and delete all backup files in a folder. I just give it a folder. It'll automatically recursively go through all subfolders there, and then I can just quickly see all the backups, and I can delete those backups. Those .00 whatever files that Revit likes to give me, those actually alphabetically sort first. And if users aren't paying attention, they might accidentally load an old version of families. And I don't like when that happens, because now they've got old things in their project that are causing problems that I thought I'd already fixed. So I like to get rid of those backups. I don't need them anymore. I've actually already fixed my content using a tool like the Family Processor tool. So the next major tool in line that I want to show here in Revit, though, is the Schedule Parameter Resolver. Say I've gone through and fixed a bunch of things. I've used the Shared Parameter Manager to change some standards of my parameter names. Perhaps I've gone through with the Family Processor and fixed a bunch of families based on those changes. When I reload those families back into my project, I may run into an issue. In my project here, let's go scroll down and take a look at these level-specific door schedules. When I open these up, you might notice that my material and finish column for my doors are now all blank. Maybe I've made a major change and reloaded a bunch of content, and these are all now not functioning. All the way up my building, I've got these schedules. Might be other schedules that might be affected by this as well. But this is a problem, because now I have to go through and manually re-add the correct door material into the schedule. And if you've ever done this, when you go to Fields in Revit, and you go try and find that door material, like I think it's called panel material. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, here's panel material. Here's the trick. I've got two of them. So I get to play panel roulette with this to swap out door material for panel material. And when I add one of these, I think it's the first one, but let's put this up in the right spot here. Door material, panel material. This whole process here is something that I go through a lot, right? When I add this, it'll add that. Yep, I got the right one. So this is my panel material, but notice what it did. It didn't retain my original formatting of MATL, and it broke my grouping here at the top. I have to now ungroup and regroup this the way that I want it. That's all manual, and I have to do this for both parameters here and for my frame parameters for all of my schedules. That's not fun. It's certainly not time efficient, so let's find a better way. With the Schedule Parameter Resolver here, this tool lets me very simply go into these schedules and just choose the ones that I want to fix. I'll just kind of check all these door frame schedules here that are level specific. I'm going to take my door material and tell it to swap out for, let's see, panel material here. I'll just type in PA to get there real quick, panel material. And for my door finish, again, panel finish. So I'm going to go find, there it is, it's paint finish, panel finish, here we go. And I'm just going to swap out those two. When I click OK, this is going to run through all 6 of my schedules here and very quickly swap out those parameters to give me exactly the ones from my shared parameter file. I don't have to make guesses here. This is coming directly from my shared parameters file, and it goes ahead and swaps those out. I've now got nice, good, clean standards. My schedules are all fixed. So in a morning, I may have changed my mind on a parameter name, fixed a bunch of families and loaded them back into the project, and now I'm fixing my schedules. I'm back on track, off and running in a morning, getting my standards ready to go. So this can really save you so much time. What about other project cleanup stuff? So other project cleanup stuff can take time as well. General cleaning of views that aren't needed. When I open up somebody's project, there might be a lot of garbage inside of here. Like in this case, if I go take a look at, let's see, I know I've got some views in here someplace that are working views. Yeah, here's a couple of working views right there. I have some sections that are unnamed. I don't know if they're being used or not. A lot of times I'll jump into a project and I see section 1 through section 2000. It's a real thing. It happens. People make sections all the time. They may never use them. They might not be showing up in views, but they exist. And they're just garbage and they're just taking up space. Well, with the Project Cleaner tool, this free tool here, I can open up my project. I can very quickly, let me clear out my settings here, very quickly take a look at my views, and the way that I have my options set up, I'm displaying my view organization, whether my views are on sheets or not. Well, when I do that, I can see all the sheets that have views on them, and I can also see here views that are not on a sheet at all. And I can also understand very quickly views that are not directly on a sheet. And this is important because, let me close this and scroll back up a little bit. You might notice here I've got some dependent views underneath master floor plan views in my enlarged plans. Well, these are going to be on sheets probably. These will never be on sheets, but I can't delete them because if I do, I delete the sub-dependent view that's actually on a sheet. Well, this tool understands that. So with Project Cleaner, it actually shows me in my views list views that are not directly on a sheet. They have more than one dependent views that are on sheets. Well, I can see that. I can see exactly what they are, a bunch of floor plans here. But I can also then understand views that are truly not on sheets. If I wanted to be real violent with this, I guess I could just come in here and delete all of this. I probably would not do that though, because a lot of my floor plans I probably want to keep. These are views that are being prepped for sheets that might not be on sheets yet. But I can quickly go through and see all these floor plans that perhaps need to have some cleanup done to them, just deleting all these working views, for example. And I can selectively go through and get rid of these views, checking the ones that I want to control. Or I can check all floor plans if that's really meaningful as well. Okay.
Shawn, we've got a question.
Yes, please.
From Jason. He's asking, what about seeing what parameters are used in the schedules?
Okay, so that might be relating back to the schedule parameter resolver here, I think. So schedule parameter resolver just shows me so let me open this back up again here. If I add one of these schedules, it shows me the parameter, add one of these schedules, so check the actual box there. It shows me the parameter name that's currently in the schedule right now. It doesn't necessarily show me if it's coming from my shared parameter file or not. It's just showing me all of the parameters that exist in this schedule. It's showing me project parameters, shared parameters, and also family parameters that are schedule ready. All I'm doing then is making choices what I want to replace them with from my shared parameter file over here. So this does show me the parameters that are in use. It doesn't show me every parameter unless I check every schedule. I could do that. I could hit check all. I probably shouldn't have done that. This is going to show me every parameter that's in every schedule across the board here, right? I'll see all of them. It doesn't necessarily isolate which schedule they're in. It just says, hey, mark is used in schedules. If I mouse over it, you'll notice that it shows me the actual schedules list. Okay, width here shows me schedules list where width is being used and all down the line. And I can make choices what I want to do with that. But again, it's not showing me the explicit shared parameter file from which this came because I can't tell you that. That's not something that anybody can know. It just says this parameter's in there. What do you want to swap it for? Hopefully that answers your question.
We've got another question.
Okay.
Any way to exporting or comparing with other schedules?
No, not really. This is designed to fix schedules directly. It's not built around comparing one schedule to another. I can check more than one schedule at a time, as you saw. So I could check, for example, my main schedule or my level specific schedule and my door frame schedule, and there might be some differences. I can then mouse over and it'll compare and tell me which schedule these parameters are used in. I think that comments, no, one of these down here, level maybe. No, I guess all these, yeah, this one here. I can see this is only used in one of my schedules versus that's frame material. There's also frame material up here. So these are defined two different parameters from two different schedules. So ultimately, I would want to say from my shared parameter file, swap them both for the same frame material so I can guarantee that they're using the right values. But that's as good a comparison as I'm going to get with the tools that we offer here at CTC right now. If you wanted some other things like that, if you're going through our tools and you're looking at them going, oh yeah, I'd like to see it also do this other thing, if it doesn't already do it, then I would recommend dropping down the application menu and requesting a feature. We very carefully pay attention to the feature requests that come through from you, the end user, so that we can understand what it is you want in case our tools don't do it. Then we'll look at adding that into our future functionality. But for right now, I do not have a true direct schedule-to-schedule comparison tool in the Manager Suite that I can use. All right, let's jump back into this project cleaner. Take a look at a few more things it can do to help clean up garbage views that exist in my project. We talked already about views that are not on sheets. You can also clean up things like view templates out of your project. I can understand if they're in use or not, so I can delete all of my unused view templates or see which view templates are not being used by view template category. I can clean up filters. I can delete sheets if I want to. I can strip out links and imports, so I can delete any imported content, and I can delete images. This tool is not meant to fix things, it's just meant to delete, to clean up and remove them. The nice thing about this is that if you were using this, say, to prep a model to be delivered to somebody else, and you wanted to like deep clean this model, maybe you're printing a PDF set and you wanted to have a detached copy of this model where you're sending them just the model and not all of your documentation. You can go through and effectively delete almost everything out of here. What I sometimes will do then is just delete all views. I don't care if they're on sheets or not. I delete all my schedules potentially, delete all of my, or nearly all of my view templates, maybe not all of them. All of my sheets go away. I have the ability to go through and just rapidly strip this stuff out. And then maybe I'm a little bit selective and I say, okay, these views here, like the A100, A101 floor plans all the way through A105. These are my general floor plans that maybe I know people want to see and maybe I want to leave those in my model. But everything else is going away. All my enlarged plans, all my 3D views, all the everything. And then what they get when I deliver a model like this is the building information model with 5 floor plans that they can use, and that's all I'm choosing to deliver. Everything else is stripped out because they've got a PDF printed set. Some of my clients love using the project cleaner for exactly that purpose. So that's an option for you. In addition to project cleaning, sometimes even before I run this to delete certain views out of the project, what I will also do is run a tool that we have called DIM Checker. See, in this floor plan here, my 01 code plan, I'm seeing dimensions that look to be pretty decent out here. They look reasonable. But there's some places in my floor plan where I think maybe people have overridden dimensions. I don't have the time to go through floor plan by floor plan and dimension string by dimension string to see if somebody's done an override. So with this DIM Checker, I can actually look for any dimensions whose value has been replaced with text. And I can exclude things like typical or see so-and-so. I can exclude those and just run this search through my model and understand exactly where those overrides happen to exist. If they're in a normal modeled floor plan view or elevation or section view, I probably care about that. Because in this case, just thinking about this string of dimensions right here, these ones were not overridden. But in a different view in my project, somebody maybe did override that. I can tell you right here, this 8'2", 8'2", 9'3.5". You can see those dimension values right here. Someplace in my model in the 01 floor plan, not the code plan, but the 01 floor plan in this case, somebody overrode those to say something else. 8 foot, 8 foot, 8 foot, 9 foot, 9 foot. Now, ideally, people wouldn't be doing this. They wouldn't be lying about dimensions, but it happens. And when it happens, that causes conflicts in the construction document set, and it causes RFI cycles, and sometimes it causes things to be built wrong. I can guarantee you, being an ex-contractor myself, what's going to get built is this overridden dimension, because this is the general floor plan we're generally going to be building off of. This code plan over here probably won't be referenced for dimensions like this much. And so these dimensions that have been overridden, they're wrong, they're actually problematic, are going to cause some major conflicts. We're told not to scale off plans, but when somebody overrides this and the whole building team is coordinating off the physical layout here, but what gets built is what's documented, that's a big conflict. Sometimes custom furniture gets ordered, it's a big deal. This tool can actually help you find where in the project this actually is. If I click show, it will open up that floor plan view and zoom in on that dimension. I can even have this select the dimension for me. That exact same set of rooms in a different view may have some goofy overrides. There's other ways of overriding dimensions as well. Like sometimes people will put just periods on the dimension, just a dot, and then they put text on top of it, right? If I select this string of dimensions, you can see down this portion of my building, that looks to be what's happening. Somebody had overridden some dimensions in here someplace. Here's one right there. They overrode the dimension. You can see that this text here is not showing up as blue. This is blue, meaning I can actually click the original dimension value. This is not blue. And the reason it's not is because somebody put text over the top of the period, an opaque piece of text. Well, that's not the right way to model. That's a horrible thing to do, completely detached from the actual dimension string. The problem is sometimes people get lazy and they do things like this. But this causes conflict, this causes errors in the document set, it causes RFIs, it costs money, costs the client money, costs the architects money. Check this stuff out in your own models. Or if you're an MEP engineer, find out where the architects may be fudging their dimensions so you can understand where those overrides might be. If you're a contractor, check this before you rely on the model. And then talk to the team members who are doing that, because this isn't a good thing to do. This doesn't fix anything. This isn't a dimension fixer. It's a checker. It's a reporting tool. So you can get this report, you can talk to the team who's responsible for it and have them fix it. That's what this tool is meant to do, but it's designed to help you maintain integrity in your building model. Let's look at one of the final tools we're going to have time to talk in depth about today. I'm going to skip over Import and Link Manager. This is a super powerful tool, helps you find imports in your model and fix them. But another major area where a lot of us struggle is if somebody has taken an import and exploded it, an imported CAD file and exploded it, or maybe they're bringing old standard stuff from an old model into your project environment and you keep getting incorrect text types and line types or a whole bunch of AutoCAD layer-based line types. Tracking those things down can be tricky and cleaning them up can be super tricky. So we have a tool here called Type Swapper. It does not matter what view I'm actually in. I can be in just a basic starting view over here, not looking at any floor plans. With the Type Swapper tool, this tool allows me the ability to look through and find things like dimension styles that are in use in my model or that are defined in the first place. Right here, I'm looking at a dimension style or a dimension type called 33. I have no idea where this came from. This made its way into my model one day. It just showed up and it's there. I don't have any instances of it. I've already cleaned that up, but I want to just get rid of this dimension style. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. It's going to delete the definition of that dimension type from my project, and I've basically cleaned it up and I'm done and I'm moving on. In other cases here, like my text types, I noticed that somebody had brought in this 3/32 inch Arial narrow. Well, I've got a 3/32 inch Arial text type. This one doesn't even look like it's named correctly, default project text, right? Somebody brought something in that wasn't from my standards. This should really become this standard down here. I don't know what views this is in. I didn't even necessarily know to go look for this. But when I went into Type Swapper, it showed me that it existed. I'm going to go over here to my swap option and say, swap this out for 3/32 inch Arial. I'm going to tell it to swap it. It's going to successfully swap those 6 definitions to this one down here. Now this is unused, and I can just go in here and purge it out directly. I can delete that text type. That takes me very little time to go look at a project and to make some corrections. If I think a project is having some problems, I can do this very quickly. Fill patterns, materials, line styles. Line styles here is a big one. When I'm looking through a project, if I start seeing things creep in, these different styles right here, line weight 04, this belongs on my detail 04 line style that I've defined. So I don't know where this came from. I don't care. What I want to do is fix it, though. I don't have to go through my project and try and find a view that has it or draw it someplace and then try and do a select all instances, which typically doesn't work for line styles anyway. I can simply go in here and say, swap that out for Detail 04, make that swap happen. It cleans it up, and now I can take those 3 line styles here, or potentially others. Grid and Grid IDEN, those don't belong. Those look like AutoCAD layers to me. There's some site work stuff in here that came from somebody's add-in. I don't want these in my project at all. I want to clean those up. There's some, let's see, what else do I have? I had some gray 01, 02, and 03 inside of here. I don't want these in my project either. I can straight up just delete those definitions, really clean up my line styles list in a hurry, and be left with just the standards that I wanted. Oh wait, I have Anno and Anno Center as well. Those don't belong here either. I can really quickly clean those things up. Once I'm done with this process, I simply save this model and I'm off and running on doing something else as a BIM manager. I don't have to pour through view upon view, trying to find things, trying to clean things up. I can use Type Swapper or Import Link Manager, Project Cleaner to very rapidly clean stuff up in these models that are in production and then get on with other tasks that are meaningful. All right, I've gone through a lot of these different tools, very rapid fire. Again, if you want to know a lot more detail about these tools, I encourage you to go download them and try them for yourself. So if you want to know about how to download these, if you don't have them already, let me show you where you can go to actually get your hands on these tools. And in a minute, I'm going to open this up for some more questions, and we'll kind of toggle back to Revit to answer those in depth. But I'm going to toggle out for just a minute. I'm going to pull up a web page here. In fact, I'm going to go to solidcad.ca. On the SolidCAD website directly, you can go to Products, you can go to Partner Products, and you can get down here into CTC Software. That's the tools we're talking about today. In CTC Software, on the CTC Express tools, we were today discussing the CTC BIM Manager Suite. This BIM Manager Suite, if you want to try it for free, you can get it right from here. Free trial. Click that link, register for the trial. You'll get a download link for it. You can then install this on your Revit 20, and this only says 2019 right now, but it's actually 2020 is the latest version. So I should talk to SolidCAD about getting this updated. But it works on Revit 2017 all the way through Revit 2020, including Revit 2020.1 that just recently got released. So you can go get a free trial, try it out yourself, or you can understand more about buying it, or talk to a SolidCAD rep. They'd love to talk with you more about how other tools might integrate with these and in your workflows as well to make you more efficient. So with that, I want to open this up to any questions you might have that haven't already been asked. Muhiz, have there been any more questions that have rolled through while I was talking?
Yeah, Shawn, we got one question from Chris.
Sure.
How often do you update the tools? That's one. And then there's parts to it. Do you have to pay for every update? If you have a bug, how is it fixed?
That is a fantastic set of questions. So we update our tools quarterly, generally. There's usually quarterly releases for our tools to bring new features in and to handle any bug that may have shown up in our tools that we weren't aware of. Obviously, if we're aware of a bug, we fix it. So when we make those corrections, about quarterly, there will be some updates to our tools in each of the suites. You don't have to pay for the annual release of the tools, right? I should say, for sub-updates within the annual release of the tools. That's just included. If you're on subscription with us, 2020 gets released. Our release that just happened about a month and a half ago to fix a couple of issues and to add some new features into each of our suites, that all of our users just get if they're already up to speed on 2020. There is an annual subscription cost for these, and you can talk to your sales team about what that looks like. But with that annual fee does come, when the next release comes out, when 2021 gets released in April, most likely. That's when we think it's going to get released from Autodesk. Our tools come out within about a month of that, usually less than a month of the Autodesk release. And if you're on subscription, you just get it. There's nothing else to worry about. So, but yeah, we do roll those quarterly, generally for sub-release updates, just to kind of keep you up to date and get you some new features and fix any bugs that may have crept up.
All right, Shawn, next question is, are there any tools that would handle lookup tables or be able to batch check lookup tables within families?
You know what, there is, and in fact, Family Processor, one of the tabs that it can work with is lookup tables. It can also work with type catalogs. So the Family Processor tool here is actually the go-to tool when I'm dealing with anything that exists inside the Family Editor in that Family Types dialog. If you can do it there manually, you can use Family Processor to automate it, and that includes type catalogs and lookup tables.
And then the last question for now, at least, is why doesn't the tool tell you automatically when there's an update without having to manually check for updates?
That's a great question. You know what? We're working on that. It's a very complicated thing to do. It's not the easiest bit of programming. It also means that all computers in the office have to have a constant connection to a service that we have on a website. And not a lot of BIM managers like that. They're becoming more and more receptive to it. I should say not BIM managers, IT managers. So we are working on getting a better update engine. One of our tools that does have automatic updates built into it already is Hive. The current suites of tools don't have that yet, but that'll be coming in the future. All right, we'll continue to hang out and answer some questions, but I do want to say thank you to all of you who've attended the webinar today. We always do appreciate when you show up live and interact with us. It makes it interesting for us, and it also lets you get questions answered on the fly there. So for those of you who have to take off, we do really appreciate, we want to thank you for your time. And Muhiz and I will hang out for a little while here and continue to answer questions in case any more are rolling in.
Yeah, we've got one more from Jason. He's on a roll.
Sure.
It's not a question, but just a comment. I think I have requested this before, but the family type parameter doesn't get included when creating type catalogs.
Yes, Jason, I do remember that, and that is actually on our list for Family Processor updating here in the near future. So feel free to re-request that, but it is on our list already, and we will be getting that built in a future release.
All right, Shawn, we've got another question from Mike Taylor.
Sure.
For network licensing options, do the workstations require constant connection to the licensing server?
For live pulling of licensing, think of it just like how Revit's network licensing used to work. You do have to have connection to the license server to pull a network license live. However, there is the ability in our tools to borrow a license. You can borrow it if you're going to be going offline, going out of the office, so you don't have to be connected. While you have that license borrowed, of course, nobody else in the office can get access to that particular license, or that's checked out to that laptop or that computer. So if you had, say, 15 licenses on the network licensing system and somebody borrowed a license, the rest of the office would now have access to 14 of those licenses because that one is borrowed to a laptop until it gets returned. Once that license gets returned, of course, it goes back to 15, just like any other network licensing engine would be. We do have the ability to borrow licenses for remote users. All right.
Mike, I hope that answers your questions. If any of you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
And also, once we close this webinar down today, when that happens, if you think of questions in the future, I mean, always feel free to get a hold of us at SolidCAD. We want to make sure that we're open to questions and able to provide any answers that you need. So you can always feel free to get a hold of us at the SolidCAD sales emails or talk to Muhiz directly. You know, we're all about making sure you get the answers that you need. Any other questions showing up there, Muhiz?
Nothing for now. I think we're all good. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. So we will be putting this up on our website, on YouTube, as so for people that missed out or came in late. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to myself. You can email me those questions, and yeah, or Shawn, whatever
Either way.
works for you. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all, and have a fantastic day.